Hello everyone, Dr. Suneel Dhand. Welcome to another video. I'd like to think those of you who follow me here do so because you want open, honest debate. You want to arrive at your own conclusions. You don't want things shoved in your face like in other places. And of course, you want to live in reality. I also think a lot of you here have realized, maybe more so than ever over the last couple of years, that so much of what we do and so many of our institutions are totally rooted in corruption. It's very sad. There's a lot of fraudulent activity out there, and our medical institutions and establishments are no different. Maybe they're actually more captured than many other institutions. And that's not to say that the doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals at the front lines are corrupt. But so many of the strings that pull us are rooted in that corruption, and many sadly don't realize it. So let's dive into the story then that I wanted to share with you here, and that is an alarming rise in newborn baby deaths that has been reported. Now, before I even dive into the story, I want to say this. Now, of course, there's many great things about the United States. I live and work in America. God bless America. But one thing that we are terrible at, and have been terrible at for a long time, is collecting accurate data and statistics and sharing that very quickly. Things are very fragmented here. Our data collection is completely and utterly rubbish. And that is why, as I've been saying for a long time, since the beginning of the pandemic, over 2 years ago now, that when I'm looking for real-time data and trends and real news that is not tainted by the mainstream media in the United States, which is probably one of the worst medias in any Western country, I go to European-based media and news sources and real government data. So that is the basis of the story that I'm sharing with you here. So let's dive in. So this story was published within the last few days actually in the BBC, Investigation into Spikes in Newborn Baby Deaths in Scotland. An investigation is to be carried out into the number of newborn baby deaths in Scotland. The Scottish Government has ordered the review of neonatal death rates after 2 spikes over a 6-month period. Both increases were larger than what would normally be expected. At least 18 babies under 4 weeks old died in March. That came after at least 21 babies died in September last year. So those may seem like a small number of deaths. Of course, every death, especially a newborn baby, is utterly tragic. But remember, Scotland is a relatively small country. I think the population is about 5.5 million. The review will be carried out by Healthcare Improvement Scotland. It is expected to last 6 to 9 months and cover all reported baby deaths between April 2021 and March 2022. The average mortality rate among newborns is just over 2 per 1,000 births. In September 2021, at least 21 babies under 4 weeks old died, a rate of 4.9 per 1,000 births, and in March at least 18 died, the equivalent of 4.6 per 1,000 births. So those death rates are way above what would be expected. The Public Health Minister said that every death is a tragedy for the families involved. That is why earlier this year I committed to this review. She then makes a few other points here. Then it says a preliminary investigation found the September spike was not linked to the pandemic virus. The high rates were the first to be detected since this form of monitoring began in July 2017. So it's been going on for about 5 years now, over 5 years. Meanwhile, in June, it emerged there were 3.9 infant deaths for every 1,000 live births in 2021, up from 3.1 the previous year. The figures showed the death rate for babies under 1 year old in Scotland is at its highest level in 10 years. So as always, when you see a story like this, I've made this point before, you want to confirm it with other news sources. And indeed here, I found it across different publications, including this one. Investigation launched after deaths of 39 newborn Scots babies in record-breaking mortality spikes. What an alarming story. I really hope that these are isolated figures and this trend doesn't continue. But let's look at this story objectively, take a step back, which should always be the scientific way. And let's think about a few points here. The first point is this, and I can't emphasize this point enough, about how we need to look, if we're in the United States and we want to look at data trends, especially related to the pandemic, we should be looking at these smaller European countries which keep very accurate data, because we've seen over the last couple of years news stories first reported over there, and then we find the same thing is happening in the United States. But again, Scotland is a country which does keep very accurate records, and actually I remember last year one of the first stories I heard about the excess cardiac deaths occurring, that story I believe was also reported from Scotland, so keep that in mind. The second point is this: if this trend continues and other European countries notice it, I think we're going to hear about it very soon. Thirdly, I'm glad they're doing a complete investigation, and I hope it is a complete scientific investigation. When I made my video a few weeks ago about the excess deaths, and a lot of people at that time, a lot of UK publications, were blaming the effect of lockdowns. Now, I'm not sure how lockdowns could be contributing to a rise in newborn baby deaths, unless we're talking about some sort of change in the healthcare of mothers or babies, or maybe there's a different factor as well, but I guess perhaps this is on the table. But we have to think very carefully. Since we first noticed this spike in baby deaths, what is different over the last couple of years? What has been different from previous years? So we need to watch this story very closely, and everything needs to be on the table. What could possibly be causing this rise in newborn babies dying in Scotland? Let's see the results of the investigation. Thank you everyone for listening. Dr. Suneel Dhand. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit the subscribe button for more videos in the future. Also hit the bell button so you get notified when I make more videos. And also follow me on my uncensored platform, locals.com, where we have more open, interesting discussions, often about the topics in these videos, which we can't really have in this environment of big tech, censorship, and silencing. Really sad I need to say that, but it is where we are right now. Thanks everyone again, and we will talk again very soon.